Welcome to the Successful Athletes podcast presented by TrainerRoad, where we interview successful athletes to make you a faster cyclist. And this week we are joined out of South Carolina on the East Coast of the United States with Michael Brophy. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great.
Michael, today we're going to talk about a handful of things you wrote in. Thank you so much, by the way, for being willing to share your story. You wrote in to trainerroad.com/SAP. That's where people can go and they can submit their story. So if you're listening to this and you want to, please do it just like Michael did. And yours is a bit different, Michael, because you don't have a world championship to your name. You don't have an Everesting record, Leadville finish, something like that.
Nope.
Instead, we're going to spend today talking about consistency, and we're going to spend today talking about training with using training as a way to kind of maintain important relationships that we all have. So it's going to be a different podcast, but it's still all about success. But before we get any further than that, Michael, give us some background on yourself. What do you do for work? What's your family situation like?
So I'm a physical therapist. Right now, I mainly work in geriatrics. So last 6 years, I've been in skilled nursing facilities. Just recently, I've taken a job in an assisted living facility, and I'm changing jobs again and opening my own practice and going part-time and opening my own practice as a second part-time job. So
Wow.
Lots of change in the last year. I'm been married for, has it been 5 years now? I can't even remember. It's crazy how the time flies. But we have a 2-year-old son and a daughter on the way.
Congrats.
So lots going on this last 2020 and into 2021. Lots of change happening in our world, that's for sure.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, especially with senior care, you've been providing with that PT stuff, that's had to have been really tough.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. The skilled nursing facility I was at last year was, we pretty much every nursing home in this area that I know of has had a string of COVID, and we got ours super early. And it was just every single day, the amount of change that was happening, I think just in healthcare in general, but specifically in that sector of healthcare. I mean, the rules and regulations, recommendations, it was every single day we were getting a change. Really, when you walk in, you didn't know if they were going to be telling you to put on a face shield, a mask, goggles, take it off in this order, put it back on in this order. It was nuts. Stay in the room for 15 minutes. Oh no, you're probably not going to get it. Come back in an hour. I don't know. It was crazy for a while. So luckily it's calmed down a little bit where I am specifically now, but yeah, it was a little much there.
Yeah. Stressful year. So a stressful job, and also not a job that's relaxing in any way. I mean, I don't know what you're planning with your personal practice and right. Getting that started, but even then, PT is not just it's not like you're pushing pencils, right? So
right. I mean, you're definitely up and moving most of the day. Sure, we get some breaks here and there, but when you're trying to get folks in and out of the bed or walking up and down the hallway, it can be a bit much by the end of the day.
Sure. All this is going to play in. We'll let all of this build up and all the circumstance build up so then we can talk about training and consistency. So you have a 2-year-old and then you have a little one along the way coming. Mm-hmm. So family constraints as well. So a pretty representative, I should say, experience for a lot of people that are probably listening to this, whether you have kids or not, lots of responsibility. Right. What sort of cyclist are you?
Mainly I mountain bike. I mean, I ride my road bike to train for the mountain bike. I mean, that's just historically, that's what I've raced. I do some cross country racing. I don't race a lot, but when I do, that's typically what I do. When I started, cycling, I was mainly a road cyclist. I started in college and raced on the road for all 4 years and did some mountain bike racing intermittent there. And then just my last year of college, I really pretty much mountain biked 5-6 days a week. So it took over.
Yeah. As it does. I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, do you race these days? From your collegiate days, does that carry on?
Yeah. I do. Let's see, maybe 2 years ago, I did 3 or 4 races. Last year I did two to three races early in the year. And then obviously, I was signed up to do the Pisgah stage race last year, and I transferred my week or my registration to this year. So that's coming up soon in April.
Oh, cool.
Middle of April. So that'll be a big one.
Yeah, no doubt. When did you discover TrainerRoad throughout this whole process?
I mean, my drive to work was about 35, 40 minutes. So I just was listening to podcasts and picked up this one. Really, I was looking to, kind of toying around with the idea of getting a coach maybe 2 years ago, and just didn't really personally see the value in it. I mean, I'm in the business of exercise, and so I feel like I know enough, but there's a part of it that's just having it done for you makes it more likely to get done. Right. And so hearing the podcast and then just getting on the website and looking at it, I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, is somebody just to lay out the plan for me. I have no problem carrying it out once it's there, but going through every single day, I was having training journals and blah, 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 blah. It just got to the point where it was too much to try and progress that myself. Making, day-to-day changes, if I want to change the workout a little bit, I can do that. But, having the general outline already there was exactly what I was looking for.
Sure.
So hearing the podcast and then just doing a little looking online.
Awesome. What sort of FTP improvements have you seen over the time frame of using TrainerRoad?
I feel like when I started, I was coming off of a little bit of a, maybe like a 2 to 3 week break, and I started at 290. I had a pretty bad injury, maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe August or so. I can't remember. But right before that injury, last test was 330 and probably was closer to 340 before I got hurt. So I hadn't tested in quite a while, but
what a bummer.
It was good. Yeah. It's okay.
So what's your height and weight to give people a perspective there?
I'm 5'11". This morning I was 146.
Great. So you have a high power to weight ratio. You're a fit athlete. It's exciting to hear that you're going to do Pisgah. So that'll be really cool. So
we'll see.
What are you worried about with the race? I sense apprehension. It is it's known as being a very hard race.
Yeah, it's not. It's just the technicality of it. Not living in anywhere technical. I don't get to practice those skills that often. So I went to Clemson for undergrad, which is only about maybe an hour from Pisgah. So I've done most of the courses, or the trails up there, but it's just been a while. I'm just rusty. I broke my pelvis a couple of months ago. And so even, that was 5 or 6 weeks off the mountain bike for sure. And then there's always hesitation there afterwards. It's just hard to get back. When you have something big happen,
So what's your plan to prep yourself in that regard for Pisgah? We know the training is already, the training's in place. You're working toward that, but what about the technical aspect?
Mainly just getting back onto the mountain bike. I'm the type of rider that I personally don't worry about the downhills as much, as far as like, I'm not too proud to walk if I don't feel comfortable. And there's stuff in Pisgah that I'm never going to ride no matter how much I try. Like my personal level of, risk that I'm willing to take is just not there. So I'm going to have fun on the stuff that I feel comfortable on, and I'll get off and walk. That's just me. I'm 31. I got a kid. I got another one on the way. I'm not going down with a huge head injury or something like that. If I can help it, stuff happens, but I think I just need to ride the mountain bike, make sure every weekend I get on it and get comfortable again.
Yeah.
Because we do have trails here. It's not rocky. It's not big and rocky, which is what you get up there.
Sure. That's a really good approach too. I think that the best way to halt your progress is to have a crash when you are struggling with something. And then in that regard, it pushes you really far back. So I think that it's smart the way that you're doing it, where especially in a race environment, you're already committed to getting off and running or walking in the situations where you don't feel comfortable. Because then it makes it so it's an automatic decision. Because when the crashes happen for me, it's always when I'm halfway between that decision. I'm in the sketchy moment and I'm like, I should get off. I shouldn't get off. And that's when the crash happens, right? It's like when I'm debating. So
yeah. And I'm not going to be, I would love to be top 10 or top 20. I don't think with the number of guys that live in that area and ride that stuff frequently, I'm fit enough to be there. I don't think that from a technical standpoint, it would be really hard for me to ever get there living where I live now.
right.
If that makes sense.
Even for us, like West Coasters, when we go out there, I've only ridden, and it was a relatively non-technical course in North Carolina, in that area up there, and it was it was dumping rain the whole time. So as a result, the routes and everything were really slick, and I was completely out of my element. That wasn't even technical. So technical for locals, I should say.
Yeah.
So once you get into Pisgah sort of terrain, that's just a totally different ball of wax. So so that'll be cool. I'm excited. You should let us know how that goes, because that'll be fun to stay in touch with. I do want to talk about the training in particular now and what you've done, because you have these life constraints, high stress, a job that very much because of COVID was compounded with stress too, and everything else that you've been going through. When do you train, and how does that work into your life and your work schedule?
Almost every day at 5:30 or 5:45. Occasionally you'll push it to 6 or even 7, depending on some of the group workouts, but 4 to 5, usually 5 days a week, it's before 5:45.
So there's two things that I want to talk about with that then. One is morning workouts, and let's go to that, and then we'll cover consistency in general. How did you get good at morning workouts? Because that's a huge question a lot of people have. They face a similar situation you do, where life doesn't allow them to train when they want to train, and they simply have to train early in the morning before the day starts.
Well, I think it got to the point where trying to ride in the afternoon, something would always happen. Something would come up that was more important than me riding my bike at that point in the day. My son gets sick and we got to go pick him up from daycare early, or, a patient runs late, and, it's just stuff, like life happens. Your wife asks you, can you go to the grocery store and pick this up for dinner? It's like, well, sorry, I got to ride my bike, is not always an acceptable answer.
Right,
So it got to the point with riding, especially once we had our son, that it was just every day it was a struggle to get on in the afternoon. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get up and ride whenever nobody else is up. And just it did take a while to get used to, but I'm more of a morning person anyway, so it wasn't that hard to get up. It's just the routine, getting in the routine and just making yourself do it. And I put I use my phone as my alarm clock, and I put it in the bathroom. So I have to physically get up and walk across the room to go turn it off. And that actually has been pretty huge for me, to like a big change that I've made in the last 6 months, probably, that's actually got me up out of the bed, instead of being late to a workout or something like that.
What other protective mechanisms like that have you put in place to help yourself?
So I started making my own drink mix probably 2 months ago. So I make a whole batch of that for pretty much the whole week, either on Sunday or Monday. I make enough to last me the whole week. It's just maltodextrin and some Morton's light salt. But I just have it in a huge pitcher in the refrigerator, and it's ready to go. I don't have to mix any bottles. I just pour it into a cup because the trainer's right there. Like it's
Mm.
all ready. I typically either make like a big batch of oatmeal on Sunday or Monday again, or I'll do like some Bob's Red Mill muesli with yogurt or whatever. I'll just make a giant batch of it for the whole week.
Mm.
I mean, the thought of eating leftover food for it's 5 days old doesn't really bother me, but also like breakfast food like that, I feel like doesn't really go bad per se in that time frame. So,
Sure.
I mean, yeah, if you're meal prepping like chicken for 6 or 7 days later, like sure, it's not going to be appetizing, but you know, that kind of stuff's getting mushy anyways.
Yeah.
I try not to be picky. Like I just get up and it's already made. Coffee's already ground. All I got to do is hit start or hit the AeroPress, and the coffee is the most time consuming thing in the morning. It
Mm.
takes 5 minutes. Um,
What about the day before in terms of fueling? Once you started training in earlier in the mornings, did you change how you ate with dinner or anything after that?
um, no, I mean, I think through the podcast, I picked up the book from Matt Fitzgerald, The Endurance Diet, and it really hit home for me.
Mm.
Um, so I just eat a ton, just
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Like I just eat an obscene amount, and especially carbs, like brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat, pasta. Just give it all to me. Like I'll take care of it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't skip any meals. I'm never like if I start getting hungry, there's a problem because it's going downhill in a hurry. Like I
Yeah.
got to get something to eat soon. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I drink like an extra electrolyte mix at night or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. I just try to eat pretty well, and I do eat like my yogurt or in muesli or my oatmeal. I eat that before I get on the bike.
And
It
how long
doesn't.
is that? Like spread
Yeah,
out, like from the time you wake
for
up to the time that you eat breakfast and then on the bike?
I wake up at 4:30, 4:45. I'm eating probably within 15 minutes, and then I'm on the bike 5:30, 5:45. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's just something that's never bothered me to eat that early in the morning. But then I also have, my drink mix is probably 90 grams of carbs, and
Mm-hmm.
on a hard workout day, I'll have a full cup of that, and on a lighter day, I'll just mix half and half. So, I mean, I still have something while I'm on the bike, even though I've eaten a full meal. If
Mm-hmm.
it's a really long workout, like if we happen to do a 2 hour workout, I'll have some dried fruit or a Cliff Bar sitting there too.
Mm. This is so some key things that I'm picking up there is number one on the alarm thing, brilliant about making yourself get up and out of bed. That's really good.
Oh yeah, my wife hates it, but
Yeah,
it
that's
works.
your motivation. Yeah, you've got to turn it off fast or else you'll suffer the wrath, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
of your partner. You can't subject them to it.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to overcome that natural sloth that resides within us in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that you do is you make sure that you eat a lot all the time and you aren't trying to starve yourself. You're making sure that you're fueling yourself adequately. And then you fuel on the bike, even though you eat breakfast in the morning. And you give yourself somewhere around 30 to 60 minutes, probably depending on the day, before you're from the bed to the bike.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to roll directly onto the bike, like many people try to do.
Yeah. I've never been like, just personally, anytime that I need to leave the house, I'm awake at least an hour early before that. That's just what I've always done. So I just started waking up an hour before I needed to ride because I need that time to get up and get mentally somewhat there.
Sure. Have you found that with time you've gotten better at tolerating particularly hard workouts in the morning? Has that adapted over time?
Yeah, I would say the only thing that I really struggle with in the morning, like from a workout perspective, is testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that there's a difference between a really hard workout and a ramp test. And there just is. And I think that knowing that you're going to have to make yourself crack to get a good result, like not a good result, but like an accurate result is a hard thing to do at 5:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I try to do those sometimes just on a Saturday during nap time or something like that. That's the only thing that I really struggle with, as far as intensity in the morning.
Yeah, I relate to that too. It's not the physical ability of a ramp test that's really tough. It's like the mental ability. It's the ability of me to be able to coax all of my potential out, so to speak. Like,
yeah.
And as a result, like you won't catch me doing a ramp test on a Thursday when I have a podcast.
Right.
You know, we've done the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast. My brain is fried, and then going into that, it's like particularly tough times mentally or emotionally or anything else. They make it hard for me to test to my ability. So I see it kind of similarly to like a really high fatigue day. I wouldn't take a test if I'm super fatigued physically, and the same thing, you know, mentally or emotionally too with that.
Right.
What else is there anything else that you would want to share with somebody if they're struggling with early morning workouts? What would you tell them?
I mean, I think you just, you know, if you are truly a night owl, I think it's going to be really hard for you. But if there's a lot of people that are somewhere in between, or just, you know, early birds in general. I think you just have to keep trying. I mean, there's nothing else to it other than like get yourself out of the bed somehow and keep doing it. And the group workouts do help with that, I would say, from a accountability perspective. I think that really helps. I mean, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, we're shutting it down at this house at 8:00 in the evening. I mean, my son goes to sleep, and it's who can get into bed the fastest.
Yeah. That's key too. I mean, it's hard then. A lot of people are like, I just can't do my early morning workouts. It's really tough. I go to bed at 11 p.m. and I'm like, well, right there.
No,
like that's, yeah, that would be so hard to do, right? Yeah.
Not a chance.
Yeah. You have to get to bed early if you want to get up early. It's just how it works. I know it sounds simple, but we don't live by that all the time, right? So
no, and it is hard to get asleep before 8:30 sometimes, but you just got to keep trying. I think you got to set yourself up for success as best you can. You know, as soon as I get home from work, I'm like doing laundry and cooking and stuff. Like we're not waiting until 7:30 at night to eat if we can help it. So as much as can be done, as soon as that kid goes to sleep, I'm winding down.
Yeah. It's also a good way to be able to get your kids involved in those chores too, instead of waiting until they go to sleep to do them.
True.
Let's talk about consistency then and the importance of that. So what do you deem consistent training, or what is consistency for you, if you had to define it?
I mean, I like to ride every day. I mean, I just do. I like to, you know, like I said earlier, I mean, I'm like what I do is exercise, you know, that's what I do for a living. And I think there's part of me that feels like I should walk the walk if I'm going to talk the talk. I mean, in addition to that, I just think that the health benefits are, I mean, like my dad growing up he's had 2 heart attacks. One when he was probably like 35 or before he was 40, and another one before he was 50. So like from a health standpoint, like I just know if I'm at a huge genetic risk. And so like that 50% that are lifestyle choices that I can improve, I'm going to do everything I can. So I think that that's part of it, like do something every day. And I've been like in the past, you know, I was really, really good with that, you know, going a month without taking a day off, even if it was just a 30-minute ride on the trainer Taku or whatever. I think if I hit, you know, 5 or 6 days a week, that is consistency to me. Especially like those tough times when, you know, Christmas and New Year's and all that kind of stuff when you're with family, and usually you just have like 3 days that you're at home, and then you got 3 to 6 days when you're not at home. So if like just this year was the first year that I did it, I took my trainer to my in-laws house and just rode again during nap time, just got on for 30, 45 minutes. You know, it was enough to keep me, you know, from sliding back at all. Right. You know, you don't have to do an hour and a half long workout and make progress. I just try not to lose anything during those like holiday sort of times.
Yeah. And do you ever wonder how much of that, because I wonder this personally, how much of that is just me psychologically keeping that consistency going rather than physically necessarily keeping the consistency going? Because there's an element of physicality to it, and you know, energy systems do decline as time goes on, but more than anything, a lot of it I feel like is upstairs, at least for me.
Yeah. And I think, you know, especially around holidays, I think people can just get into that mode, you know, me, myself included, where you're eating and drinking for, you know, 4 days straight, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a slob, you know, or whatever, you know, whatever word you use for yourself. Amber probably wouldn't like that one, but you know, when you get out of the practice, you know, all of a sudden it's like Monday rolls around and it's time to do a workout again. You're like, oh gosh, here we go. This is going to hurt this week. You know? Yeah. I agree though. I think that from a mental sort of perspective, you just keep a little something there. You may not slide back. I mean, but if you go from like a Wednesday to a Monday not exercising at all, I mean, you're definitely going to have some physical changes there.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And actually we covered that recently on the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast, the decay rates, basically kind of like the half-life for the different energy systems. And yeah, it exists for sure. So I want to talk to you about that very thing of what do you do when you do fall off the wagon? Because and when I say fall off the wagon, for those unfamiliar with that saying, it's just implying that you drop off from your normal routine of consistency, because that's a big frustration point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, if they're struggling with consistency and they have a solid week or maybe a solid 2 weeks and then they falter on a day, how do you manage that yourself?
So I like kind of built that into how I use TrainerRoad, like how you recommend using a low volume plan for a lot of people, even though, you know, I ride 6+ days a week. Usually I still follow a low volume plan. And I think for me, what that does is, first of all, I don't have the time to do 2-hour workouts. Like I just don't. If I do get that time, great, I'll take it, but I can't bank on it. Right. So I follow the low volume plan because I don't have the time to do the individual workouts, nor can I promise myself that, you know, 5 to 6 days a week, am I actually going to get on and do the workout that was prescribed? So I do the low volume plan. That's like 3 workouts. I'm going to hit these, you know, anything else is gravy. And what I do, you know, I do like a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday plan. And that way, if I have time over the weekend, I can do a big ride if I want to. But like, if I miss a few days, I still hit my key workouts. I still progressed that week, right? Because last week it was, you know, whatever version. And then this week we're doing the +1 version. So I still got some progression. I think like I said earlier, just setting yourself up for success is important, because you still feel like, even if you only got to ride 3 days, you still feel like you hit your marks. And you still feel like, I think the bigger part is when you get down on yourself about not doing all the workouts, not necessarily not doing the workouts, but then that leads to, I'm a failure, right? Which isn't true. I mean, you miss 2 days of riding. It's not the end of the world. Do I like missing 2 and 3 days of riding? No, but you know, it does happen.
Sure.
I think just being honest with yourself and real with what you actually can do. Because when I talk to people about TrainerRoad, there's a ton of people that I know that I ride with that are signing up for mid and high volume plans. And I'm like, I don't know. Sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah. That's the engineered padding, I would call it, is so smart. Like, life, some people may have life that is absolutely like a clock, like it never changes.
Right.
But I've found that the majority of us don't have that. Now you're doing a lot of things to try to insulate that and try to keep that training time separate and controllable, which is really good. But even then, life can throw curveballs, and you know, it's tough. So if you have, and this is like an oversimplification, but if you have 6 hours to train and your training plan is filling all 6 hours of that, that means that you have 0 hours that you can have any sort of schedule creep. So when your wife or partner asks you to go to the store to get something, when work requires more, when a child requires more, when fatigue requires something, you know, you don't have any wiggle room. So that's why That's a super smart choice on your end. Even though you have the time, you still pick something that you can execute on, then add to, but you can execute on it with, perfect diligence like that. That's right. Super smart.
Yeah. And like, especially around the holidays, like, I mean, it's 3 workouts. Like I did Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before Christmas. Like I hit all 3 of my workouts. Like they're all hard back to back, but I knew that I would also have 4 days that if I just wanted to do easy peasy for the rest of the week, I could do that. But I got my 3 of quality in, even though they were stacked back to back, I got them in. And so that was a success to me. If that's all I did, like I said, everything else is gravy. If I can get more than 3, that's awesome.
It lowers the stress of everything in your life too. When your training is something that is beneficial for you and it's something you can control and you're managing it intelligently like that. Oh, it's so great. It's really bad when your training is adding additional stress on top of the training stress it already gives you,
Yeah.
So,
the last thing that I want is my wife to look at me and like, are you seriously going to ride your bike right now? Like, when, kids screaming or whatever comes up, is like, no, if it's done, taken care of early, we're visiting with her family, my family, whoever, you have to give yourself to that time. I mean, it's more important for you to be spending that time with them than it is for you to be riding your bike.
Is there anything else that you do? And honestly, a lot of what you do for the morning workouts they're absolutely systems and helpful aids for consistency. But is there anything else that you would share to a rider that like, these are things that I do that help me be consistent that we haven't talked about already?
No, I mean, I'm also very okay with changing the workout or the variant of the workout to suit me on that day. When you like going back also to what is consistency to you, like if something comes up in the middle of my workout and I need to get off, like that's not a failure. I go to Workout Creator and I take that workout and I just splice it, and I'll usually add another interval onto it because, if it's an hour-long workout and I was at minute 30, like I'll end up doing 45 minutes, so I'll get an extra interval in, but that way it's like, it's not half done. It's not, I only did half of my workout and I'm only going to do half later. Like I did a little extra because I gave it up early today. Same thing with like, if like the last workout that I failed, I mean, I just finished the workout, extended the cool down, did the interval in my cool down because it was like, that's what I mean. Like also for consistency is, when something comes up, you got to be willing to adapt. If I know that, let's just say you had Baxter +2 scheduled, and I think that's a 2-hour workout probably. And, Friday rolls around and it's like, you just don't have 2 hours that morning. Well, we can do the -1 version. You're still going to get, you're going to get 80% of the benefit, 90% of the benefit of what that designed workout was. Cost you 15, 20, 30 less minutes,
Yeah, super smart. Be flexible. And we've tried to design, like you've mentioned, the workout variants and the ability to extend a cool down or anything else like that to help with that. That's awesome. You mentioned the group workouts as well as something that helps motivate you to get up and to get on that bike when you have other people also depending on you to be there. But let's talk about that for a little bit. Like what do you get from the group workout experience outside of obviously just having other people there? But what value do you get, additional value from the group workout experience?
So when COVID started and no group rides were going on, that just takes out, we talk about training so much, but I mean, it's a social aspect of your life too. And when you're used to going out and riding with guys, every single week, and then all of a sudden it's not there anymore. I mean, that's a huge part of your life that is just gone, right? In addition to that, I mean, I think that, so when COVID started, I just immediately went out. I got a new computer so that I could get on group workouts, because my old computer was from college and it just wouldn't even support it. And my training partner signed up for TrainerRoad right at the beginning of all this. And it was just like, all of a sudden you're looking at one of your best friends and you're training together every day. I mean, what more could you ask for? I don't know I don't know what else you could want, right? Like, I can get on, see one of my best friends every single morning. And I know that he's going to be there, right? Or he's going to tell me that he's not going to be there for some emergent reason. And it's just that, like you said, that extra motivation to get up, do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, that's one of the reasons that I prep all my meals and my drink mix and stuff, is so that I'm not late at 5:30 in the morning trying to shake up bottles and whatnot. I mean, it's just, so the social aspect of it, my training partner lives in Charlotte, which is 3.5 hours away from me. I mean, I usually would see this guy once a quarter. We have another friend that joins like every other Friday. He'll get on. He lives in Texas, so I would see him once a year, maybe, usually. He's riding with us this Friday. I get to see him like every 2 to 3 weeks now. I mean, it's nice. It's nice to be able to keep that connection with folks. I think anybody that's had a good friend group in college can relate to that, how the farther and farther out you get, the less and less people keep in touch. And it's just hard. You have to work at those relationships. And this is something I'm already doing. We both enjoy riding. You might as well get on and shoot the breeze in between intervals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a huge benefit for motivation. And then also just I feel like cycling is more fulfilling that way too, when it's shared like that. And then when it's also got those relationships with it, it's like, I mean, it's really why so many of us start in the sport and really start in the sport, not just, I want to ride bikes, but once you get in touch with that group of people, then it really, skyrockets things for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the motivation aspect, because I'm sure early morning workouts with your friend, because of two different lives and two different circumstances, there are mornings when one is not motivated or one is motivated. Okay, maybe not. I guess let's approach that one right there.
Yeah. Well, so my buddy is a college level runner. I mean, he ran for Duke, he's a D1 athlete. He's one of those folks that's just like, he can be so stone faced and going through hell in his head, and you would never know it. He's like reading newspaper articles while he's doing 3x20 threshold. So like, I don't know, from a motivation standpoint, I don't think either of us have trouble like going to that place on a daily basis. I can count on, I can count 2 workouts that one or the other of us have failed in the last 8 or 9 months.
Wow.
So I don't think that's usually not the issue for us, our particular group, our particular mix. And I think the reason for that is just because we really do align on the want and the need to exercise every day. I think fitness is a big part of both of our lives, and it's just important. It's important to me. It's important to him. And that's easy. When you have, it's even easier when you have somebody else that shares that with you. Right. I don't know. Like I said, I don't struggle to work out anymore. It's just part of what I do.
Yeah. It's become habit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the hardest part of training. When it isn't habit, you feel like you're constantly fighting upstream, right? Until it's not any longer. And then at that point, then it's just normal. And that's just how it works. Yeah. It's kind of funny how that happens.
Yeah. So like I said, I fractured my pelvis and I had 5 weeks off the bike, and then I got on the trainer in week 6, but I would still get on group workouts and heckle.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so I was still in the habit of getting up, and like just seeing them ride was motivating to me, because I knew I was taking a I took a 50-watt slide,
Mm.
and everybody was catching me. Not a good
Sure.
feeling.
Had to heckle him to make up for it.
Yeah.
Then I guess recapping all this here, that like what we've talked about, what role does cycling play for you? And because it seems like you've mentioned the need to exercise every day, that sort of stuff. Are you more event oriented, and that's why you're going toward things with cycling? Or what's the end goal with cycling for you? What does it satisfy?
Yeah, I think it's that thing in my life that is just, at this point, it's that thing in my life that is so constant that,
Mm.
you know, going back to COVID and everything that was going on, is like, I still had my 5:30 workout was untouched. Like, I mean, that was something that was, that's the, my time for me. That's how I take care of myself, right? So that I am worth something to my family later on,
Mm.
and to my job, my patients, clients, whatever. I mean, if I can take care of myself first, then I'm going to be, more likely to be able to be that person you want me to be later on. That's how I feel about it. And then, yeah, as far as the events go, I mean, I do them. I like racing. I am really competitive. I think I hate losing more than I like winning, there is a difference.
Yeah.
That's just me. Like, I'd rather fall
Yeah.
over on the side of the road from exhaustion than lose to some of the people that I ride with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just like being fit. I mean, you can tell when you are, and you can tell when you're not. And I like the
Mhm.
feeling. The health benefits are obviously huge for me, but I like knowing that I can go out and just like string it out for the whole ride if I want to.
Sure. Awesome.
It's a good feeling to have, right? It makes you feel good whenever you can ride fast.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It feels so good. And a lot of that is because you look back and you know how much work went into it. It's not easy come, for sure. It takes a lot of work to get there.
I didn't hop on the bike yesterday and roll for an hour at 3:30 or whatever. Like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the fruits of your labor, right? And
Yeah.
it's a lot of labor that goes into it. So, Michael, thank you so much. Significant FTP improvements, but what I'm really getting from this one is consistency, the things that you can do to make that consistency easier, in addition to morning workouts. And then of course the value of training with other people. So tons of actionable takeaways for this. I'm excited to hear how you do in Pisgah. Got to send me an email and let me know. Yeah, let me know how it goes. Someday it would be cool to do that race. I would get absolutely smoked because of the terrain, because it's just so different from anything I'm used to. But it'd be cool to give it a shot someday. So yeah, shoot me a message. Let me know how you do.
Yeah.
If people have questions for you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
I'll jump on the forum if there's a
Cool.
post. That's probably the easiest way. I get on there somewhat frequently, so I'm try not to be too involved with social media. It starts to get to me after a while. So
I can understand.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks a bunch, Michael. Good luck for Pisgah, and thanks for your great example of consistency. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.